Ms. Temple, can you hear and see us?
I can hear you in Dallas.
Great. All right. Where's this coming from? Can we get the presenter site to talk, give us a sound check?
Oh, let me get my cell phone and do that.
Get out of here at 12:30.
Yes.
And we want them to be able to answer.
Yes. So I will.
And I'm not shy about waving you down.
Oh yeah, please do. You know, yeah. I'm going to set it for 11:20. Okay, perfect. So if I just have to stop, I'm going to stop because.
Okay, we're going to get started. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I'm Stacy DeLeon. I run the Postdoc office here in the Health Science Center. Thank you for coming to session 2 of our Etiquette and Professionalism series. Just a couple of quick announcements. Our dining etiquette workshop, registration is open for that. It closes this Friday, but we have limited seating, so we may close it before then if we fulfill all the spots that are available. That one is only for postdocs, since my office and the TAMU PDA are paying for that one, and the Hilton isn't cheap, so we have to limit that one to postdocs. I apologize for that. Flyers are outside. You can scan the QR code to register for that, and again, registration ends on Friday. And I'll put this in an email. If you register, you'll get an email from me, and I'll let you know, but I want to let you know now. The dress for that is business casual. Confident business casual. And if you were here last time, you should know what that is. So, and we're looking forward to that. The other thing, if you're in this room, press and hold your microphone if you want to ask a question or make a comment. The other sites can't hear you if you don't do that. So, and then for anyone who wasn't here last time, this is Randi Knapp. She is our presenter today, and for our dining etiquette workshop in 2 weeks at the Hilton. Randi graduated from A&M with her BBA in marketing in 1979. She went on to join the consulting staff of Arthur Andersen and Company. Through that experience, she created training that encouraged people to utilize the tools they have been given to be successful personally and professionally. Give a warm welcome to Randi.
Woohoo! Okay, my friend at the off-site, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Woohoo! All right, perfect. I'm going to warn you, I've got a tremendous amount of information. I told Mr. Leon I went home after a little procedure this morning and took a nap, and then I started adding stuff to my slides. So I'm going to zoom through. I will stop at 11:20, regardless of where I am in the slides, to make sure that I answer questions that you may have. And then if we have some more time, we'll go till 11. We'll go to 12:30. I'm going to encourage you, if you have not signed up, to come to the dining etiquette class, because so many people have habits in dining they don't even know they have. And one of the things that you cannot fake when you go and have a meal with someone, whether it be professionally or personally, is if you do not know how to hold your utensils correctly. You can't fake that. And so I'm going to encourage you to come. Some of the information I think will be redundant. You've heard it before, but it's always a nice refresher. It was a refresher for me as I went through this information. So we're going to talk about utilizing technology effectively. But I'm going to be broader than that, my friend. It really is what you can do to make sure that the people that you communicate with, not face-to-face, which is what we talked about last time, perceive you in a positive way. So let's go through just a little bit more about me. BBA in marketing, president, leader, motivator, encourager, and a coach. And so you can call me Coach Knapp. I love quotes. Here's one from Warren Buffett. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. And so I think we all need to be careful about the choices that we make. Who would ever have thought that people who were in college 20, 25, 30 years ago would now be held accountable for some of the decisions they made? I hope nobody digs up anything on me, is all I can say. I did not mention this book last time, but I wanted to throw it out to you because we do talk about habits. And so Tom Corley wrote this book about change your habits, change your life. And some of the behaviors that he talked about that made 177 average people into self-made millionaires ties into what I talk about, and that is mastering certain rules, etiquette principles, including sending thank you notes, and we're going to talk about that today. Acknowledging important life events, such as birthdays, such as anniversaries, such as being promoted. Eating politely and using table manners, which we will talk about at the etiquette dinner, and then dressing properly for various social events. All the things that if you attend all of these events, we will touch on. So all of these things, should you choose to utilize these, will help you in your journey to be a success. I love this book, and I brought it today, by P.M. Forney, called Choosing Civility. and it is 25 Rules for Considerate Conduct. Because why do we talk about civility? It's because we're now in this me movement of I can do anything I want, wearing anything I want, at any time of day that I want, talking loudly on my cell phone, and we've all become very desensitized. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you are creating your own library of books that are helpful in your career journey, this is one I would select. It's a very easy read. You could read a chapter every week because it's based on the particular behaviors that he talks about. What is civility? It's a code of decency we can choose to apply in everyday life. And if everyone did this, oh my gosh, this would be a wonderful place to work. I'm going to go into these. And again, I will have these handouts available as a PDF for you, and so you can use these. But when you look at this, basic things that we wish people would do to us, such as acknowledging us, thinking the best of us, listening, being inclusive, accepting and giving praise. How many times have you said, that was a great job, or you look nice today, oh, this old thing? Just say, you're welcome. Just say you're welcome. Others, respecting others' opinions. Keeping it down. How many times are you driving and the car next to you has the windows open and the music is so loud that you can feel it in your vehicle? And because silence is okay. People that apologize earnestly and how important that is. The other thing is, these are the last of the 25. Accept and give constructive criticism. That's a hard one for some of us. But I think we need to be humble in our journey because there are people who can provide value if we could do things better. And so I'm going to say to you, you have my email address. If there are things in these sessions that I could do differently, I would appreciate the feedback. I'm going to open that up. So I'm going to accept that constructive criticism. Again, these are just some behaviors I wanted to alert you to because in the whole big scheme of things, how do you want people to remember you? And I just gave a bridal shower on Saturday. And as of Friday, there were still 10 people who had not responded. Well, there's a difference between 30 people and 40 people when you're preparing food and you're preparing beverages and just seating in your home. And so those are people didn't make me really happy. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do is this, and this costs absolutely nothing. RSVP to events, whether they be a business event or they be some type of personal event, and then honor your commitment. Don't ghost. Don't be the one that says, oh, yeah, I'll go, yeah, I'll go, and then you never show up. And then you want to make sure that you arrive on time. You don't want to be late. Sometimes things happen, but you want to, again, be respectful of the person who is giving the event. What I did is I did a mail merge, and we'll talk about mail merge in a little bit, and made name tags because a lot of us didn't know each other that were at the shower, and I only created name tags for the people who had responded. So if you didn't have one of the beautiful name tags that I'd created and you would wear on your right side, then that was kind of a, uh-oh, you didn't respond. Also, acknowledge someone when you see them. What amazes me in walking around Texas A&M University is supposedly we're such a friendly campus. No, we're not. No, we're not. Because people, if you say hello to them or you say howdy, they are shocked because they're walking around with their pods and they're on their cell phone. And so I would suggest to you, we are in a safe place, is see what happens, and then I want you to report back to me as you walk around campus and say hello to others and acknowledge them. Disconnect from technology when with others. Arrive early or on time. We already talked about that. We're going to talk about sending thank you notes. And then the most important thing is being gracious from a behavioral perspective. Very quickly, just some behaviors to consider as you work with others. It's always important that if you mess up Or you do well, you take responsibility for your actions. And then if you make a mistake, don't find someone else to blame. Just accept responsibility. It is so incredibly refreshing. Treat others as you would like to be treated. And then regardless of what you're asked to do it the very best that you can. When you get into in any kind of work environment, and I know some of you are already working, and you get jobs that we may feel are beneath us or just something we'd rather not do it the very best that you can, because someone has to do it. And people remember when you will put in that extra effort. For example, I had a friend, she was an executive search headhunter and was very, very successful. She moved out of that, and she wanted her daughter to go to a particular high school so that the daughter could play athletics. And so Trig, is her name, decided she'd work in the copy room. She'd work in the copy room. So what she decided to do, though, is in those down times, she would read different magazines, she'd look up different articles, and she would find items that might be of interest to the different teachers that were at the school, and she would provide that to them with a smile. So think about taking that. What can I do to make sure that I am doing the very best I can do on tasks that may not be something that a PhD could do? It could go to someone else. Do it with confidence, and do it with a great attitude. Collaborating is always a great way to bring people together. I love synergy, and because sometimes the sum of people getting together and working on something is so much greater than just doing it independently. There are times when it's important to share credit. A story about a young man I was interviewing when I was working many years ago, and he had been in the military. And he said, my job is to be an umbrella for my team. When things do not go well and there is criticism on my team, I raise my umbrella because I don't want them to get that criticism. That was my responsibility as their team lead. But if things go well and there are things that there are praises for them, I put that umbrella down because I definitely want them to hear those praises. So think about, with your team, are you acting like an umbrella? When someone has done something well, let them know. We all love hearing our name. Apologize when necessary. Be punctual to work, meetings, and events. And I want to say thank you for being punctual today. And then treat others in service with respect. And then to be a person of integrity, which is what I would hope that each of you strive to be, is a man or a woman of integrity, to be honest and tell the truth, which is sometimes difficult. Keep your commitment. Show honor to those not present, which means not talking about others. Because if you talk about others to someone, then what they will think about you is when they're not present, you're probably talking about them. And think about that with other people. If they are talking about others in front of you, they're probably talking about you when you're not there. Have an abundance mentality, which means this, and I love this, is that there is enough success to go around. Because you are successful doesn't mean that someone else is not going to be successful. There is enough to go around. And then, again, accept and give praise. I'm not going to go through these. We talked about these last time, about remembering what are the things that you want to be described as. How do you want people to remember you? And how do we use technology to do that? Or you're not able to communicate in person. When I began work, and your parents would tell you this, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have fax machines. Copy machines, you had to be really careful with copy machines. We did not have any type of computer or PC. And so you think, how did you get work done? Well, we did. We had typewriters. And I remember when I graduated, I could type because we took typing in high school. And I had to prepare presentations. And I went to my boss and said, or to my manager, and I said, I would love to get a typewriter because I have to type a lot of information. And they said, oh no, because if you type this information, people will think you are a secretary. Now, everyone now has to type their own material. You would not ever think to say that because we all need to know how to type. But that was back then. And so things have really changed. But the nice thing is I have a real understanding of business communication and what things need to look like when they are sent. Because there are times when information, the written word, is not just on a screen, it actually is sent as a piece of paper. But I also understand that there are different forms of communication, and yet we seem to be stuck on just a few. And so you think about email, texting, a phone call, and then a face-to-face interaction. Each of these is appropriate in a different situation. So in written communication, and I want to focus on this because I get a lot of information from students. I help people with resumes. They send me emails, and I find that regardless of where you are in your life, many people do not know how to write well. When I went to work for Arthur Andersen, I thought I was a pretty good writer, but I was actually sent to a class to learn how to write from a business perspective. I was also on the newspaper, and so I remembered that when I wrote, I had to think about who, what, where, when, why, answering those questions. And so I want to share with you some things that I think are really important that you may already know, but it's a reminder. The one thing to think about is every reader is unique. Every audience is unique. And so we talked about interpersonal flexibility last time. Your approach and how you write to one audience may be a little different than how you write to another audience. But I also want you to understand how important words are, and words hold power. So again, understand your audience. Invest the time and space in educating them if necessary. Let's just say that you have had a meeting and have made a decision. It's important as you are sending out the information on that particular meeting and the outcome, if the people were not aware of how that decision came to be, invest the time in letting them know how it happened. Use fewer words for greater impact. Sometimes you try to be very verbose to make someone think that, oh, you know it all. But actually, it makes it more challenging to read. The one thing we talked about in the class that I took many years ago was called the Fog Index. And if you look at the major pieces of information that are written now that most people will read, it's probably at a 4th or 5th grade reading level because the sentences are short and there are not a lot of words. So the Fog Index is taking the number of words in a particular document and dividing by the number of sentences. So if the number is really high, that means that it takes a person with greater education to read that. And so less is more, and shorter sentences that have a greater impact make a lot more sense. Get to the point as the reader is really busy. I always suggest presenting good news before bad news. And then especially as I'm sending out emails, people do not like to be told what to do in a demanding way. And so if you can go through and create requests in a positive manner, that's really very pleasant. Think about emails that you've gotten that this is mandatory, you must do this. Is letting people make the choice and then suffer the consequence if they choose not to make the choice. And then limit industry slang. Make sure that your audience knows the terminology. You always want to have a polite and yet formal tone. I've seen emails come across that a person forgot it was a formal email and they were using emojis and a lot of slang and CUs instead of SEEYOU. You want to make sure that when a person reads that, they understand what your educational level is, that you actually can write a sentence. Remain consistent with your verb tense. That's another thing. If you're past, everything needs to be past. And so I guess what I'm saying is this. When you send an email out or if you have a document, is don't write it and then quickly send it out. Take the time to reread it to make sure that it's a reflection of what you want, the message that you want to communicate, that it is well written, and so the person who receives it will receive it in the manner in which it's intended. Which also means that the level of detail will vary based on your audience. You know that you use spell check, but you know what? It doesn't always work. Doesn't always work. If you can, use active verbs. And then use, of course, proper grammar and punctuation. I find a lot of young people, and all of you are young people because you're younger than me, use a lot of exclamation marks. No. Sometimes it's like every sentence is an exclamation mark. So think about everything I say is very, very exciting. Hello, we're so happy today. Use it very sparingly at a point where the thing that you want, the most important that you're so excited about, that's where you use the exclamation mark. And then take a class if you need help. Here's something that I've just found out. Remember when you go to a restaurant and there may be two of you and they'll say, so just two of you? No, there are two of us, not just two. So in writing, I would recommend that if you use that protector word just, I just have one comment. A better way is to say, I have one comment. Take away any words that really aren't needed. Yet limit the use of that. If you go through a document that's written, you will find that you use that word many times and it's not necessary. So just remove it. Limit use of adjectives and adverbs that do not add value. This is, and I remember this from an interview I did with a candidate years ago, and this woman said, women especially tend to give away our power because we use words that are adverbs. I was so happy. That was really nice of you. Instead of saying, that was nice of you. I am happy. Look at the words that are adverbs or even adjectives and think about, do I really need this word? Do I need this word? And usually, if you have a word that it ends with an ly, you might think about, do I need to use that word? Remove I think, especially in an email. I think we should do whatever. The email is from you, so it is your thoughts. Decrease I'm sorry. We sometimes use I'm sorry, and it's I'm sorry. And I'll bet you know people that every time something happens, oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, it's a filler word, verb adding. The other thing, and this was from a training class that I went to from a marketing perspective, is we tend to use I a lot in our communication. Go through after you've written it and see if there are different ways that you can write so that the focus is on the reader, who sometimes might be your client. It might be someone you're trying to convince, is to take away the I and focus on them. And I just learned that a couple of months ago, and that is brilliant. Yes, ma'am.
So, in regards to some of those points you had on that last slide, what
Yes.
do you, because I know I do a bunch of those, so what do you recommend then when you know that if you're doing them on purpose to soften an email because you're afraid the person it's going to is going to read it and think you're being overly harsh, or you don't want them to get the wrong impression of you or think you're just nasty or something, or a better word I don't want to say right now.
That B word? Got it. I think, and that's a great question, I think you can go through the email and instead of using the adjectives or the adverbs, possibly rewrite it in a certain way. And I like the sandwich method, which is say something nice, talk about the issue, and then close with something nice. That might work. And, every situation is going to be different. And so there will be times that you might need to use some of these to soften it up. But the other thing, it might be that an email is not the correct way to send that message. It might be a phone call, because if you are writing an email, there is no emotion. There's even, because you don't want to put an emoticon, I don't want to upset you, smiley face. Because when you say, I don't want to upset you, guess what? They're already set up for you to be upset. I think the communication method you might want to select might be a face-to-face or a phone call after you read it. And the other thing I would say is this: never send an email when you're all upset about something, because you can't get it back. And I had a woman one time, I was working on an event, and I had a lot of different ideas that were presented, and she did a reply all in the email and said some very harsh things about me that it still hurts after all these years reading that about me. And I felt very confident in the decisions that I was making, but to have someone be so harsh was hurtful. She should have on that email. She really should have never sent that email because, emails are not confidential. Anyone can forward to anyone. And so if you have an issue with someone, a phone call might be easier. I remember my husband and I loved 60 Minutes. There was a 60-minute article on the Pope and the way the Pope communicates. Do you know how he communicates? Fax. Because you can't change a fax. Emails you can cut and paste, and it can be different, but a fax, it comes over, and that's the document, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I do want to talk about the importance of thank you notes, because remember that was one of Corley's habits, is we have gotten away from thank you notes because we think that we can do everything via technology. But I'm going to bring up to you that there might be times that a note will let you accomplish your business goal. For example, my oldest daughter interviewed at MD Anderson on Friday, and I went, you will write a thank you note, and I'm going to help you to every single person that you interviewed with, and you're going to write it on Sunday, and you're going to mail it on Monday. Because I know this, that note can sometimes be the difference between the job offer and not the job offer. And all of them were very specific to the person with whom she interviewed. And so I would also say write in cursive and in pen. And I thought I had brought some examples of thank you notes that I've gotten from students written in pencil. So what does that make me think if I get it in pencil? What grade are they in? When did you move up from pencil to pen? I think that was like in 3rd or 4th grade. And then I know many of you, well, I hope that you know how to write in cursive. And I've had people go, well, I don't know, I don't really write nice. And you can't see this, but this was from the former dean of the business school at A&M, Jerry Strasser. Well, he doesn't write really nice either. Where's that thing? He doesn't write really nice either, but I don't care, because guess what? What a wonderful note that he sent to me. I wanted to thank you for your kind note regarding my time at the Mays Business School. So it doesn't really matter. But cursive is better than printing. Because again, you want the person thinking about to receiving that to think that you are a PhD or a former PhD. I mean, you've gotten your PhD, and so that you are a mature person, not a 4th grader. Use quality stationery, should be timely, and is a lasting legacy. I save my thank you notes that mean something to me, but I also wanted to bring, when I say quality stationery, this is Crane's stationery, which is and I'll leave it out, look at it, which is it's just a really nice stationery weight. So a person who knows and gets it goes, whoa, they spent some money on this. My sister was very nice and ordered some flat cards for me that have my name on it, that actually have my address, and then they have the inside thing. When a person gets this from me, wow, they know I spent some money on that. Well, it wasn't me, it was my sister. And then these are just some little fold notes. So having some different thank you notes, I wouldn't necessarily, because you never know where you're going to be, say that you should get an address all the time, probably. Nice stationery that has, well, you could be using it forever. For example, I got married in 1984, and these were my thank you notes from my marriage that I didn't use. guess what? I can still use them because I'm still married. The other thing is thinking about when you send information out and you need to send it on paper. Most of us get items that are on copy paper, which is probably a 20-pound weight. If you're sending something like your resume or you're sending a business letter to someone, make sure that you get a paper that's got some weight to it, maybe a 24-pound kind of paper. Because again, you want the person who receives that to say, oh, they invested in themselves. That's the important thing. Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to ask, is this specific to any kind of industry? Or like say if you're interviewing for an engineering job, will you send it to the people who interviewed you?
Yes. Any kind of thank you note can go to anyone because it sets you apart. So few people send a thank you note that's well written. And when I say well written, I've got an example. We just talked about the quality, using quality stationery, but let me go to this. Here's a sample thank you note to Miss Garland, and I've just typed it up, but you reference, this gives you an opportunity to ask for that job again. This gives you an opportunity to sell your skills to that company again, because they say, our discussion was very informative and stimulating, which prompts me to again express my interest in working with your public relations department. I know I can fulfill the requirements you seek. Now, if you're the only one who sends that, guess who they remember in a positive light? And then if you have a business card, and I know many of you do, include that business card. Now, if you are looking for a job outside Texas A&M, I would not use your Texas A&M business card. I would use Vistaprint, and I would, for $9.99, you can get a whole bunch of business cards that have your name and your contact information, which is probably not going to change. And it's an investment. It shows them a way to get in touch with you. So this is basically a sample thank you note. I would not say something like, I had a good time interviewing with you. I hope to get a job. You want to let them read that and know you put thought and time into it. And so what we did with Taylor is she actually typed up what she wanted to say, and then I came in and helped her. And then she was able to take what she typed and write it into a letter. Now, and hers were pretty long, so I would say this, because some of you may go, okay, well, where do I write on this card? You'll notice there's nothing on the front. If you just have a little bit, you will write just on this part of the card. If you've got a lot, you would start at the very top. I would always put the date, and you always want to have a salutation, dear whoever the person is. If you can say if they said, you can call me by my first name, that. And then write this, and then sincerely or regards or best wishes. I wouldn't say best wishes. Regards, sincerely, and I wouldn't say yours truly either. And then one, which is the real important person, Taylor actually went to the very back. Now, and there is a way to actually enclose this card. If this were the front of the card, this is the back, I'm going to put this into the envelope with the front facing me. Because that way, when the person who is receiving this card gets it, they will automatically be able to open it and read it. As opposed to, I don't want to send them the back of the card. You want to send them the front of the card. And I never thought about sharing that, but today I was kind of looking at my newest little book called The Pocket Butler, and they mentioned that. Knowing how to insert correspondence is really important. So I will share one other thing, and this comes from being a temporary worker for many years. Let's just say that you are sending a letter. Let me go back to this. And this is what a business letter would look like. You want to make sure at the very top have your contact information. That's your kind of a company. And then you would always want to write who you're sending it to, their first name, Mr. or Ms., MS, their first name and their last name, the company, their city, state, the address, and then city, state, zip. And then you want to put a right flush tab over and put what the date is. And then you will say, dear, whatever their name is, And then you have the body of your letter. And what you want to do is to make sure that that letter looks pretty on the page. You don't want to have a 0.5 margin at the very top, then there's nothing on the bottom. You want to take the time so that when they look at this, they go, oh, this is really well done. And again, if you are a horrible printer or cursive writer, typing something is better than not sending anything at all. But when you send that, this is how you will fold it. If this is the top of the paper, for it to fit in this regular envelope, make sure you get the correct size envelope. Don't get a little bitty envelope because you won't be able to fold it in thirds like this, and then you will place it. And then, so when a person pulls it out, they pull it out, and they're able to open it like this. You would not want to fold it so that your greeting was at the very top. For example, like this. Sense? Now, I do that for my Christmas card, because it has Knapp News at the very top, but not for a business, situation. The other thing is to make sure that you're using the appropriate fonts. So here are some, when we talk about technology, using technology, here are my favorite word applications, because I am the mail merge queen. If you don't know what mail merge is, it really will change your life. Because you can use data that you have in an Excel spreadsheet. You can use data that you have in a Word doc that's in a table, and then whatever field you have can then be moved into a document. For example, if I had all the people that were in this class, so I would have first name, last name. I can sort on any of those fields, and then in my Word doc, I can create a template that will pull that data in, because I might decide that I'm going to send a thank you note to each of you people, but it's all the same. But instead of just saying, dear student, I would say, dear first name, last name, using mail merge. I love mail merge. Here's the other thing. When you are writing something that's going to be printed, use the robustness of Word. Most people will do things that are all caps, bolded, underlined to make something stand out. You don't have to do that. What you can do is have a different font and just bold it. You don't have to use all caps. I love a right flush tab. I'm not going to tell you what that is, because you're postdocs. You can figure out, I'm going to get you to Google what is a right flush tab. It will change your life, especially when creating your resume. If you want to make sure that everything lines up on the right, a right flush tab. You want to make sure, too, that you insert headers and footers if you have a document that goes beyond one page. And in the page setup, there is a little box that says different first page. For example, I'm on the prenatal clinic board, and we send out minutes for our meetings. And I know that I only want the logo from the prenatal clinic on the very first page, not on the second page. So I go in to different first page, so my first page is going to look different than my second page. But then I always want to insert a header and a footer, so I have the name of the document, also the revision time or the revision date, as well as what the page number is. Also, did you know that you can create and use styles? A style will help you. Let's just say that as you're creating a document that's a report, and so every time you have a different section, you have a header. You can create a style that, let's just say, is Arial bold 14 point. So every time you go to that header and want Arial bold 14 point, you can create a style that does that instead of having to do that every time. Because then the best thing is that if you need to go in and you go, oh, I don't really like Arial, I want to use another sans serif font, you can change that style, and it will go ahead and automatically update everything that is that particular style. Use of paragraph spacing is really important. Serif versus a sans serif font. Serif has the little bitty feet on the bottom which is what my copy on my PowerPoint is, a sans serif does not have the little feet. And that's what I've used in my headers, which is Century Gothic. And then also, as you are saving documents, especially documents that you may be sending to everyone, you want to have a naming methodology for those so that they're all the same. For example, with the minutes, let's just say you have to create a report every week. The name of it would be the same, but there might be a different date. And you always want to note the organization or the entity that belongs to that document. Because, for example, I always tell students, when you name your resume, name it first name, last name. Because if you name it resume, everybody names their resume. But if you say, Mays Knapp, Randi, resume, February 2019, that is very specific. All right, we're going to go through email and reminders. I'm going to zoom through. When you email something, you always want to consider your objective before you're writing. Always include a salutation. On the first email thread, Dear Randi, or Good morning, Randi. It's a little humanity. As the thread goes on, you don't have to do that because you assume that it is going to the same person. Again, proper grammar and punctuation. Here's something that I never really thought about. Use that subject line intelligently, which means let the person know when they need to act on something. For example, report due. That could be one. Report due. Report due to Dean of HSC by Friday. When you get that and see that in the subject line, you are much more apt to say, I've got to pay attention to this. If report due, you go, okay, well, I can look at it on Wednesday. So use that subject line intelligently. And then format your message so that it's easy to read on different platforms, meaning using bullet points and bolding, as opposed to just sending out a block of dark text. Always watch who you copy, and especially who you blind copy. But again, if you're working on a team, and let's just say that there was a lunch meeting, and they wanted to know, are you coming to the lunch meeting for your team? There is no reason for you to reply all. I don't care if you're coming to the lunch meeting, unless I'm the person who's coordinating it. For example, if you're on the board of an organization and you don't need to know if everybody's coming to the meeting. So be very specific about, do I need to copy all or not copy all? When would you send a blind copy to someone? You want to be thoughtful about that. A blind copy means that the person who is in the to, the recipient of the to, does not know that who the blind copy is. But here's the thing I would also tell you is, for example, I'm invited to a happy hour at the country club every Wednesday. And in the to column are the other 100 women who are invited to the happy hour on Wednesdays. And so for me, it's a security issue because I have access to the email addresses for every person that's in that to column. But if I blind copy them, I can send that initial email to me and then put them in the blind copy, the BCC box, which means no one knows who else is getting that email. So just some things to think about. Yes, ma'am.
That also helps with the reply alls. If you blind copy everybody you're sending an email to, then they can't reply all to everybody on accident. So
Great point. Thank you. The other thing I would warn you is that possibly inputting the addressee name last, and then be really careful. We are all so busy, and we're doing things so quickly. I sent an email to, I thought, to the priest of my church, making some recommendations. Well, it actually went to another Angela I serve on a board with, and she was nice enough to return it to me, saying, I don't think that I was meant to get this email. But you know what? There may be people who are not that nice, or maybe it goes to their spam folder. So the email you thought you sent to someone that you've never heard from never arrived at the destination because you didn't take the time to make sure that it was going to the right person. Of course, you can go to your sent folder to find out, okay, did it send, and then realize your mistake, but that might be after the information you requested has already passed. And then the other thing is watch being informal. Hey is never appropriate And I know we use it all the time, but in a text or an email. The other thing is there are times when you're very busy. Let the person know you've received their email and when you will be able to respond. If the email thread gets too long and it's too confusing, just pick up the phone and call. There are other communication avenues. Revise the subject line if the email content changes, which is a really good point because, in my bunco group, they'll be talking, it's December and they're still talking about January 2018 bunco. Change it. Change that subject line. Always be patient because not everyone sits on their phone to check their emails. Know that it is not as, you may not get a response within an hour or two. If you need something quickly, texting is or a phone call is really the best communication method. And then, develop a plan for attachments and hyperlinks. Have you ever gotten an email and there are all these hyperlinks and it just looks awful because hyperlinks sometimes are like long. You know that you can go in, let's just say if you say register here, you can go in and right-click on it and say, and put a hyperlink on there. But what I found out when I suggested that to the MIS students is that there are certain companies that will not allow those hyperlinks to go through. And so again, understand your audience, you might have to cut and paste those really long, awful-looking hyperlinks. Can you tell I love the way things look? That is really important to me. And then you always want to send the appropriate sign-off, which means thank you, good day, whatever you want to do, and then your name. And then always remember to send. I've kind of been guilty of that. So I'm not going to go into this, but know that for email signatures, you should have an email signature for every email that you initiate as well as every email you respond to. For example, with my tax attorney, any email that he initiated, which weren't very many, actually there were none, he would have his full email address. But anything he responded to, he would just have his name. And so I had to, when I wanted to call him, go and look on the website, which is very, very frustrating for me. And so I share that with you because I want to make sure if someone wants to get in touch with you, you want them to be able to get in touch very easily. So always have your email address. And know that these are your HSC, your TAMU email addresses. You can't make your own thing. They're very specific. And a lot of it is because their branding is very, very important to them. They want you to put in the taglines. Because I thought this was kind of interesting that, especially in the HSC, their new brand or their new tagline, making what if possible. They want everybody to see that you respond to. So also, take the time to format for readability. This was an email that I got, which everything was together. There was no paragraph spacing. This was another one that I got last week. And look at the email signature of a student in the engineering school, which I was blown away with because most of the undergrad students that I get information from, it doesn't have this at all. So if you are working with any undergraduates, encourage them to have an email signature that gives not only their cell phone number, but also their email address. And you may go, well, Coach, why would my email is up at the top on the front, on the from. The reason for that is I could take James Carl Downey, if I needed to send that information to you, I could do a cut and paste of that entire signature block. And it would be really, really easy because everything to contact that student would be there. This is just ridiculous. You can imagine, hey, sorry I'm not going to make it to class today, or not coming to work today, I'm feeling sick. The other is, this was, it's a little bit challenging to see, but this is how I used formatting with font, with color, and then also with just a shape to prepare information that I was sending out to people. This is an email. See, there's one of those hyperlinks that just, is just awful. But this you would have to read is just a mess of an email. So we'll have time for questions in just a bit. I want to go through really quickly on cell phones. Here's the thing that I was always taught. A person has precedence over a phone call. So back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, if you came into my office and the phone rang, I would not pick it up because you were important, not the cell phone. We've lost that. We've lost that. So think about this. If I'm having a conversation with someone, put that cell phone on silent. There is a time, though, when information is critical. You do need to pick that up. But also understand and abide by your company organization's cell phone policy during work. Texting, I would say this, manage your texting habits so you can present yourself in a positive manner. And then if you don't know if that person is in your phone book or in your contact list, introduce yourself and then prepare this clear and concise message. No one likes to get, a text is not really for hundreds and hundreds of words. That's an email or a phone call. It's a prelude to other forms of communication. Also, verify who you're sending the text to because you certainly cannot retrieve those. If you're able to, people look at texting as a way to very quickly get a response from someone. We know we can't always do that, but if you're not able to respond, at least let a person know that. Here's the other thing. What I've seen with some people now is they feel like if I'm in a conversation with a group of people and they're not talking about anything I'm interested in, I can just pick up my cell phone and I can entertain myself. That is so rude. That is so rude. You need to just listen because because as a listener, you might find out information that you need to know. And so put that cell phone away. Another story is this. Depending on the audience, many people who are older really value conversation and face-to-face interactions. And so I heard the story about a young man who had been asked a question by someone, and instead of standing there and saying, I'll go get the information and I'll let you know later, I'll contact you, he stepped away from the conversation, thinking this is the right thing to do, Googling the information, got it, and then was able to bring it back to the conversation. Well, the older gentleman was not impressed. That to him was really rude. And I thought, what an interesting story. So think about your audience and who it's appropriate with and who it's not. There may be a time that if you're in a meeting and if you're always checking your cell phone for your messages, let someone know if you're going to take a call or have a message because there may be important information for that particular meeting. In a business situation, symbols and emojis only when necessary. And then if the the texting thread is too long, just pick up the phone. Appropriate instances is send a text when texting and the light of your phone is not disruptive to others. Please don't do it in the movie theater. Makes me crazy. When running late, the nice thing you can do is to let the person know when you might get there, when plans change unexpectedly, or if you need to quickly respond to an invitation. Don't text when you're eating or drinking with others. You can't use it as a thank you note. Let's say you get a graduation gift, you get a birthday gift for your grandma. Don't send a thank you text. Send her a thank you note. If someone says, would you like to go to the Opus event tomorrow night? Don't say, I'll get back with you. Let them know yes or no. While you're walking, oh my gosh, this is real. I see all sorts of funny cartoons of people walking and texting because you can fall anywhere. So you want to be safe. If you know someone's driving, don't send them a text. And then if there is a subject that is about something that's emotional, if one of your best friends, if a parent is critically ill or has passed away, don't send a text. Pick up the phone and call them. And then the other thing is, please, 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 to all the students, do not text and drive. It's so unsafe. So that's texting. Also in making phone calls, because my daughter, I will say, Sterling, you can pick up a phone call because I know pick up the phone call. So, but you always want to think about the timing and the location. Think about what you want to accomplish. You always want to introduce yourself and your organization. And what I learned when I was in sales is this. Is this a good time to talk with you? Don't just start talking. Because they may say, no, I'm in the middle of something. When can I call you back? And then write that down and make the phone call. You want to make sure that you listen intently. And then if you are calling someone, let's just say the dean of the business school or the dean of an organization that you want to be a part of, and you encounter the gatekeepers, we call them, you always want to be nice, because if you're rude, guess what? That gatekeeper can keep you away from whoever you want to talk with. In answering the phone, you always want to smile. Because if you smile, you can't say, hello? But if you, hello? Does that make sense? Smiling will not allow you to have a bad tone of voice. Always state your first and last name and your organization. And then know if you are answering the phone for someone, find out how do you want me to answer the phone for this particular organization. You need to take a message, take it and deliver it, and then always repeat important information. If someone gives you their phone number, I just want to repeat this because that is critical information. And then for those that call you, don't do what my oldest daughter did. Yes, the one that was interviewing. And this was she was in college, and she said, hello? And so I would start talking, thinking it was her, but it was just her message. She got me every single time. Every single time. Say, this is Randi Mays Knapp. I can't come to the phone. Leave a message and I'll call you. And I would understand what the expectation is. Within an hour, within 24 hours. Don't say that because you just never know when you're able to call someone. If you are with a company or organization, let them know that. Why you can't answer the phone call, and then the expectation. If you have a voicemail box, please set it up. I have a student that, hopefully a student coming to Texas A&M. I worked with his dad, and so I called the young man to talk to him about A&M. Didn't have his voicemail box set up. Oh my gosh. The other thing is, and then I worked with another woman who, every time I try to call and leave a message, her voicemail box is full, and she goes, oh, I get so many voicemails, I'm too busy to tidy up my voicemail box. Okay, update your message as needed, and then have a method to track your information. Don't just put it on little yellow slips of paper. And then here's the thing that I think is brilliant. You can accomplish a lot if you leave the correct messages. Don't just say, this is Randi, call me back. About what? This is Randi Mays Knapp. I am calling about the dining etiquette dinner on February the 27th. I need to understand what the arrangements will be. You can call me and I'll leave my phone number. Or you can text me, or you can email me. But that way, I left my name, why I'm calling. I also should say I'm calling on Monday morning, and then what my action item is. Because if I just say call me, but give them a reason. Because here's the thing. I was very specific in the question and the action that I wanted. There is no reason why we actually have to talk. We could just communicate in other methods to resolve the issue. So in summary, here's the thing. Only you can manage the impression others have of you when you're not meeting face-to-face. And I've just given you some thoughts and some ideas. Think about deviating from your usual method of communication and communicate with others, and then avoid utilizing technology as a way to avoid conversations. Because the only way that we will get better in being able to converse with people is by practicing. And many times, being able to look at a person in the eye and watch their body language and watch their facial expressions will tell you so much more than having a conversation via texting. And so I love Max Fritz's quote, technology, the knack of so arranging the world that we don't have to experience it. So think about the number of times you go to some type of athletic event, or you go to any, for people who are visiting beautiful, beautiful places, and all they can think about is taking the correct picture. So just experience the people. So that is it. Any questions? I've covered a lot of information. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's really a question, but something that maybe you could just talk a little bit about.
Yes.
When you meet somebody at a networking event, and so you want to follow up, send an email, kind of what you should include in that or how you format that.
Great question. So the thought is, if you meet someone at a networking event and you want to respond to them, reach out to them, I would suggest using an email, depending on in that interaction, if if they said, please call me by my first name, then you're able to say, good morning, whatever their first name is. Nice meeting you, slice of humanity. Would like to talk to you more about whatever your conversation was. And then I would like to call you later in the week. Would that be appropriate? Is there a good time for you? And then send that way. Here's the other thing that you might do. Remember the woman that worked in the copy room and she would find things that were of interest to other people? Is in your conversation, if there's something that you are working on or you have access to based on where you are at Texas A&M, and you can send that to that person because it might be of interest in their business or in their research, I would do that. Because again, what you're doing is adding value to the relationship without expecting to get something, but people remember that. Just a thought. Y'all have been great today. I appreciate it. You can look at this stuff. I have business cards, and I hope to see you in a few weeks at the dining etiquette class. You're welcome.
And just remember, we have flyers for the dining etiquette outside. You can register just by scanning the QR code. So, thank you. Class in here afterwards because they're all lined up out there. I'm like, where?